Hi, everyone. It's Conversations with Susanne, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Beth Rutty. And we have talked to you before about certain topics, and today we're just going to chit chat a little bit and see where our conversation takes us. So, Beth, it's been a while since we chatted online or on Zoom about how things are going. For you as a yoga teacher, as you as a person. I think last time we talked about vulnerability and these times. So yeah. So what are you feeling now? What's going on?
I mean, it's interesting because we just had a short conversation about what we're going to talk about, and what popped into my mind is like, oh my goodness, this is a little bit scary, not planning something.
Yeah, exactly.
And I kind of feel like that's where I'm at. Like I'm okay not planning things. So yesterday I taught my last class for the summer, and I'm going to be doing a bunch of things like short little vignettes, I'm calling them, and posting them on my social media, and especially loading things up to YouTube to keep people in practice through the summer. So like 10, 15, 20, 30-minute things, nothing really long. And I've taken on a gardening job, and I'm just kind of, like we said, like looking forward to just kind of being off camera as much as I've been on, and taking that little bit of a sabbatical so that I can be fresh and ready to go in September. So it's like these things that should scare me.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just going to leave it to the universe. That's where I'm at. How about you?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a super I guess I'm a super planner in a lot of ways, in terms of, not way in the future, but okay, I got a bunch of things I want to do each day. And I'm also looking forward to the summer when my schedule will be a lot lighter, and just really, I think, okay, what I'm feeling, I guess, is that like, I'm really tired of this pandemic. I'm really tired of the isolation. I have a lot of clients who, are saying the same thing, that they're tired of being alone if they live alone. Like, a lot of my clients live alone, and they say this has been really difficult. So I'm really looking forward to becoming more social. I hope things open up so that we can have more variety. But then I'm also on that same level. I'm just like really on a quest just to feel calmness and inner peace.
Yeah.
So what are? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say calmness and inner peace. I mean, I think we're looking for different ways to achieve that these days. The rules have all changed, haven't they?
They have. Yeah, and it's very interesting because everything I'm reading and a lot of podcasts that I'm listening to, it all comes down to that you cannot heal, or you can't be mentally well unless you do find like some moment of peace in your life. And so, I think COVID's taught us all that we have to slow down, that we have to, I was just listening to a podcast this morning by William Lee, L.I., I think that's how you pronounce it, about, how during COVID, people started cooking for themselves, and they started eating better. Some went the opposite way, and we're seeing the result of that for sure in the nutrition business. But I think that, like these methods of, it's all coming down to slowing down and realizing what's important to us.
Maybe being more mindful and moving towards more awareness. And to me, that's always been a definition that I've used of yoga, is it's a process of becoming more aware. And I think, as many horrible things have happened to people, and states of mind during the pandemic, I think it's been an opportunity for many people to realize, like you said, to slow down and to realize, maybe do a check-in with what's important in life. And I mean, I feel so blessed and feel so privileged, and I do say that sincerely, that I'm in a place where I feel like, even though I've had some ups and downs over the last year, I'm still living in a place that's beautiful, and I have a roof over my head, and I have food, and I've been away I'm in a small town, and so the pandemic has not been as maybe worrisome as some people living in other places. So every day it's made me have more of a gratitude practice, and to send more love and healing light out into the world.
Mhm. I think that's a huge thing because yeah, I feel the same way. I'm very lucky. I don't, you know, I don't necessarily have to go in. Like, I know I'm not a healthcare worker that I have to go into a hospital every day and have that constant stress or that constant reminder. You can take little sabbaticals away from reality in a way. If you're constantly in it, then it would be totally different. But I think
Yeah.
even for everyone, that grateful piece is so important. Um,
Yeah.
are you do you mentally think about this, or do you write it down? Being great, your grateful list, or do you have a
Oh no, it's up here and in here.
yeah?
Yeah.
So
I once in a
during
while, I'm not a big journaler. Once in a while I feel compelled to write, but like I know you're such a big writer, and no, I write things out when I have a lot of conflicting or confusing thoughts, and it helps to kind of just dump on a page. But I don't do that as often as just, look around and feel and lay on my mat and just kind of connect. And along with it, have been guilty feelings about, oh my goodness, why do I get to be so okay? And I think a lot of other people are probably feeling that too. And so I come back to, well, I don't know, I don't understand why. Maybe I don't have to understand why. And guilt, as far as I know, has never served me in my life. So I I I work with how not to feel guilty, which, that's an interesting topic, isn't it?
Well, I was just going to say that's so funny that you brought that up. Oh, so two things I want to say before I get into the guilt thing. But the first thing is about, yeah, journaling is good, but the real reason that I write down sometimes what I'm grateful for is because I'm so off track. Like my mind is a
Mm,
monkey mind, and
yeah.
I'm maybe feeling a little depressed or a little sad about something, and I need to get back on track. And so, certain things I do to get myself back on track is I do the 6-phase meditation by Vishen Lakhani. And but I write it down, because when I write it down,
Mm,
I'm forcing myself to do it. Whereas when I go into
mhm.
if I'm monkey mind, I can just start going, I'm grateful for this. And by the time I get to 3, I'm thinking about something else, right? So I
Yeah.
find that and believe me, like nobody else would be able to read what I'm writing. It's just I'm grateful for this, this, and this, and this. So that's one of the reasons why I write things down. But it's most of the time I can just be like you and just get on my mat, feel, sense, take a little. But when I'm in a hyper mode or I'm
Yeah.
really monkey mind, I just need to write it down to get back on track. And then I do
Yeah.
that for like 3-4 days, and I'm okay. And just on that same mode, so that helps me get on track. And the other thing that gets on track is on track is to just go back to helping people and
Mm,
serving my community. And as part of the 6-phase meditation, there's this loving component, so that also helps me get on track, because I think that's the other thing with this time period is just beginning to realize, like, I say peace and calmness, but peace, calmness, like love is really becoming very
mhm.
important in my life. And I'm just realizing how important it is, like not just in terms of my relationships in my own home, but just the whole community, the world, so
Yeah.
that's
I,
kind of
f-
interesting.
I feel like you've been so good at that, like even
Oh, well,
like
thank you.
long before the pandemic, with your outreach and your clothing sale. And I just feel like, you're a good example of someone who you can tell you sincerely um, appreciate others, and know that a big part of your purpose for being here, or maybe that is your purpose for being here, is to serve others. Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
an inspiration to see everything that you do. And it's no wonder you have a monkey mind once in a
Yeah.
while.
Well, it's funny because my one friend is, she's kind of, well, she isn't, she's not kind of, she is a psychic or a, whatever. And she, keeps telling me you're a healer and a light worker. And, so I guess that is and I've always felt like from the time I was little, like if you had asked me even when I was 5, what did I wanted to do when I was grow up? And it would be to help people. That was always
Yeah.
what I wanted to do. Like
Oh,
that is
good.
that's never changed. But I want to go back to the guilt picture because
Ah,
um
I knew you were going
yeah,
to circle back.
yeah, no, because it's so funny that you mentioned that. I was discussing with my colleague, who's a neurological chiropractor. So we're both trying to help a particular client. And I was saying, like, why isn't what we're doing working? And,
Yeah.
he just turned to me and he said, like, maybe guilt. And I was like, guilt?
Ah,
What does that have to do with any? And he goes, a lot of people feel guilty, even like, you're asking them to eat this food, add some more vegetables in their diet. We'll use that as an example. And maybe they don't, maybe, for 3 days, they don't have one vegetable. And then, they start to feel guilty. And so guilt
oh,
can actually really inhibit our growth.
yeah.
And yeah, so when you say you are actively working on not feeling guilty, how do you do that? Like what is
I
your
know. I knew you were going to ask that. I don't know. I think for me, I want to come back to first you saying about, like, I love that Brian said that, and you should probably mention it's Brian Smuck, right? That you
yeah, Brian
let's
Smut,
give him a little
chiropractor.
plug.
Yeah.
That I've been doing some studying with Thomas Myers, who's the guy with the anatomy trains, and it sounds like very flippant, but he's very, very well informed about fascia. And he talks about, I love that he talks about that this is the stages that something becomes, so the first time you ever do anything is an experiment, and you don't
Right.
know the outcome. So you experiment every time. That's the first thing. It's something new. And then if you do it again, and then maybe again, it becomes familiar, more familiar each time, and it becomes a gesture. And then a gesture over time becomes a habit. And a habit, then your posture develops to support that habit. So, and he's big on talking about emotion and how it affects how you hold your posture. So it could be
Yes.
something from your childhood or something that you're mimicking from your parents, but it could be some kind of feeling that, maybe it's guilt becomes more like this, or
Right.
this I don't know. I don't know how
Well,
different
as
people project guilt, and the posture becomes part of it. So then that gets stuck in your body as a posture. So it's, I
yes.
used to not quite understand what it meant to say the issues are in the tissues until I started hearing the way he described that. And it's like, oh my goodness, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How you
And as
feel is how you hold yourself. Sorry.
exactly, that is a perfect analogy and so important, I think, for today, because we're seeing postural changes due to COVID because people are sitting more, people are, maybe depressed. I mean, all these things are happening in the posture. Um, like even, because I sit at the computer a lot and I'm writing, and then I just feel that like this is happening, and all I want to do in my yoga practice is this. I just want to
Yeah.
open up and you can feel like, and I'm sure you've had this experience before as a Thai yoga massage therapist, that, or maybe you haven't, I don't know, but you work on somebody and then all of a sudden an emotion or a memory comes up as you're working on them.
Yeah.
And I had a very fascinating situation where, a client, I was working on her mid back, and all of a sudden she felt very emotional and she go, oh my God, like I'm overwhelmed with emotion right now as you work on that spot. Well, as it turned out, she had almost died of a spider bite many years
Oh,
ago, previous, like, it was, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years ago, when she was actually in a third world country doing missionary work, and
oh
she had
wow.
got bit by a spider right at that spot where I was working, and she had almost died. And she kind of forgotten about it and blocked it out of her mind.
Oh,
And it all came out, after, after the massage was over, and she went and sat for a minute. She goes, oh, you know what? That was that memory. That was that feeling that I had right there. And that's kind of an
wow.
extreme case, but you do
Yeah.
see this, you see that. And why do, okay, so this is another thing that's so interesting is I like to often end now my massages. I used to start with the belly, but now I like to
Yeah.
end with the belly. And it's just so
Hmm.
interesting when I end that way, that people leave really happy because of course you
Ah,
have so many,
interesting.
yeah, you have so many emotions happening right now in our gut. There's
Right. It's
serotonin and
connected to the
dopamine
vagus nerve, right?
connected to the vagus nerve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if I did it at the beginning, when I do it at the beginning, I think that's just as good, maybe in some ways, but it's just the way lately, that's
Hmm.
intuitively what I've been doing. And
Yeah,
it's really
interesting.
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 Yeah.
Because I never end with the abdomen. I always end with the head, but you got me thinking. Yeah. Once we
Mhm.
start opening up again, I hope to be able to do that through the summer, is to have more Thai massage clients and one-on-ones, and be able to get back to working with people. I know you've already started to do some of that more, but yeah, I mean, that's interesting. You just kind of led me on a little bit of a trail of a thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's all like, you're right. We do hold our emotions in our tissues. And I even wonder, this is kind of, again, kind of down a different trail, but so many of us have scars. Like we have physical scars because we had a cut or we had an accident or whatever. And when we do muscle testing for nutrition, often the scar is the cause of the illness, or the symptom that they're having. So let's say they're having indigestion, and then you say, okay, is it food, is it this, is that, is it particular order? And you go, no, it's none of that in the muscle testing, but it comes to that it is maybe scar tissue. And then you kind of equate, is the scar tissue kind of like, is the trauma that they had, maybe, that scar, like it's the physical scar, but
mm,
maybe it's the mental scar that they
yeah,
haven't resolved. Like maybe they haven't
yeah,
resolved the trauma of whatever caused that a scar.
right.
A lot of scars are due to surgery, and I think people never, like post-traumatic stress syndrome from surgery, you never deal with it after.
Yeah,
You just go home and you
right,
heal, you know
right, right, right. And
so
meanwhile, your body has been put in this unconscious state, and you've been cut into, and there's trauma there. You just don't have this memory, conscious memory of it. There's a subconscious, got to be a subconscious memory of it. I never thought
yeah.
about that either, but I think maybe you're onto something.
Yeah. So I kind of, so when we ask people to work their scar tissue, like no doctor has ever, I mean, I have numerous scars from surgeries, and no doctor has ever said, work that scar. Or, and we
Yeah,
know, because, I teach pelvic floor workshops. We know
yeah.
that the episiotomy scar, you know, who the hell works that scar? And yet
Mm,
it can cause trauma for years and years and years, both psychologically and physically in the body. And
yeah.
then, somebody finally says, oh, do you think your episiotomy scar might have something to do with that? So, and an example of this is in my own case, I'll share here, is that I was feeling like every time I did a forward bend, my I wasn't feeling the stretch in the bulk of my hamstring. I was only feeling it at the attachment. And I kept
Hmm.
thinking to myself, am I doing something wrong? Doing something wrong? I had my pelvic floor that released through an osteopath. And oh my God, it was like night and day. It was like, holy
Wow.
crap. Now I do a forward bend and I'm feeling it back into the hamstring. So
Right.
the middle,
Wow.
where you should feel it really. And so that's very fascinating as well. So
Mhm.
so that's my own personal story with that. That's why it comes to mind.
Yeah, yeah. I do believe that wherever the injury or wherever the issue is in your body is not necessarily where the problem is. And
Hmm.
and I think so much of
True.
the time, we want to fix the shoulder, so we work with the shoulder. And sometimes there's benefit there, and not to say that's not, it's understanding how the shoulder's working and why it's doing what it's doing and not doing what it's doing, and looking to see, through the fascia where the tug is, where it's not able to go into that rotation and or whatever it needs to do, or hip or knee, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the layers and layers of understanding. And, you know, sometimes I wonder why I keep taking all these courses.
Well, I think that we're
What am I
knowledge
gonna do with it?
seekers too, right? But like, I don't know. Every time you take a course, I find I learn one or two interesting things, and that's all that's all I'm hoping to get out of it. If I learn more, that's
Yeah.
a real bonus. I
Yeah.
just wanted
Yeah.
to go say too, a good podcast. I mean, she's all over the place right now. Oprah talking about her new book.
Yes. Oh yeah. With Dr. Perry. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I listened to the Brene Brown one because I love Brene Brown and we've talked about her before. And, it's so true. Like she says, when somebody is acting a certain way, you often say, what's wrong with you? And she's saying,
Yeah.
you shouldn't ask what's wrong with you. You should ask what's happened to you. And that's the
Right.
whole,
Yeah.
I haven't read the book yet, but I'm going to buy it
Yeah.
on,
Yeah. It sounds amazing. I listened to that podcast too. I love
yeah,
everything Brene Brown these days.
I
A
know.
little
I
plug for
know.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's amazing because everybody, the gist of it is that everybody's had something happen to them. And
Mhm.
you layer people of color on top of that, or whatever, indigenous people, or like a more global hardship, or
Yeah,
suppression. And like it's even harder
yeah.
to live in the world and bounce back and
Mhm,
not have let your traumas have an effect on you. So
mhm.
yeah, it's all interesting. Yeah,
So,
and he
so
speaks so well too.
Oh, he's amazing. Yes. So if we circle back to guilt and what we do about it, then we kind of got off
Oh
topic there. I
yeah.
wanted to just go back to that.
I'm good
Um,
at that.
yeah. So, I mean, I guess recognizing it is number one. Recognizing it.
Yeah. I think for me, how do I get rid of it? I think I need to not only recognize it, but sit with that feeling of what I what I tend to kind of go over details and kind of try to find out what did I do wrong, and or what could I have done differently. And I feel almost like I need to go through that process, and sometimes feel I get stuck in it. But if I can think of it as a process that I have to go through, I allow myself to go through it, allow myself to feel it, so that I cannot feel it, so that I can not, I shouldn't say it that way, that I can work through it to the point where I can let it
To the
go.
come to the other side, sort of feel the pain.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
Yeah, I think acceptance is a big thing as well. Accepting circumstances for what they are. Kind of that
yeah,
old adage that you can't change what. There's like certain things that you cannot change.
yeah.
Well, that's like there's a saying, about change. But
Hard,
anyways, I always
hard to
forget
do
those
that.
things. Yeah, but sort of accepting the situation. Okay, so again, if you go back to the food analogy, so you didn't eat your vegetables that day. Don't beat yourself up. Like just remind yourself that you are a loving, kind, amazing human being, and stop beating yourself up and just accept, okay, that happened, but tomorrow's going to be a different day. Tomorrow's
Yeah,
a different day. And I
yeah. I
think
mean,
it's
that's interesting. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
well, it's a journey, right? A journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my clients, said to me this week. So she's one of my clients that I'm counseling with cancer, and so sort of kept falling off the wagon, and would even hear other people say, oh, but when she fell off the wagon, there was no repercussion to that. Okay.
Right.
So now she's on my clean eating diet, and she has somebody offers her, it kind of cajoles her into eating something that she knows that is not probably going to sit very well. So she eats it, and then of course she feels sick after, because her
Mm,
body
yeah.
was so clean, she wasn't used to this, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't feel guilty about it, but what she said to me was, now I understand all those my friends who you would always say, you know why am I eating or drinking this thing? Like alcohol might be a good example too. Like, why am I eating this, and then I'm suffering the next day? I'm eating this this thing, and then I'm getting heartburn that night, or I'm
Mhm.
feeling arthritic the next day, but I'm still doing it. So I'm kind of self-torturing myself. So she finally kind of understood that whole thing, that people will do this. It it takes a long, it's a quite a bit of a journey to
Yeah.
finally come to that
Yeah.
realization is, you know what? But in the meantime, before you get to where you are really disciplined, you're gonna have lots of these,
Yeah.
setbacks kind of thing. And you just kind of have to accept that as part of the process.
Yeah.
And
And maybe they're not
start to do better.
setbacks though. Maybe they're
Yeah,
not setbacks. They're part of the process. Did we
yes.
talk before on a previous conversation about the 4 stages of competency?
That doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, so can I dive into that? Because
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
it's it's I just keep reminding myself of that when I when I'll, for the same example that you're using about nutrition, let's say, or it could be anything. So there's 4 stages of competency, and the first one is unconscious incompetency. So you are unaware of something that you're doing that's not serving somehow, whether it's not serving yourself or not serving others. You're unaware. And we've all had that experience where someone will say to us, hey, you do this all the time. And you go, no, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Immediately
so
that's your
we
response.
yeah, and then so the next stage is, so we go from unconscious incompetency to conscious incompetency. So now it's been pointed out either by somebody else or we've noticed, oh my goodness, look what I keep doing. I'm
Yeah.
such a terrible person is where I usually go. I'm
Yeah.
such an idiot. How can I do? I've done this for years. It's
Right.
now like a light is shining back on my past, and I can see every time I did that thing and what the repercussions were for me and for others. So now I'm
Yeah.
aware of it. I'm aware
Right.
of what I did. So that's conscious incompetency because I'm still doing it.
Right.
I'm still doing it. And this is probably the hardest hurdle to get over. Noticing it and like or doing it. This is where I have the most guilt, I think,
Mhm.
is when I do something that I know I shouldn't do and I think about it, I did that. Why didn't I stop myself from doing that? And then I
Right.
kind of go, okay, it's part of the process. So I,
Right.
I live and feel that guilt for a little while, and then I go, okay, at least I'm noticing it. At least I'm
Yes.
noticing it. I want to try to catch it before next time. So I
Right.
put
Right.
that intention out. The third stage is conscious competency. So now we have been able to move, and that's the longest period, I think, for me, it is anyway. I've moved to the place where I know what I'm doing and I stop myself, and it's hard work. So there's a
Yeah.
few things in my life right now, just this last year that I've really had lights shone on, and things have moved from shadow into light, and there have been glimmers, and it's not consistent, but glimmers of I want to say something, but I know that that's not going to serve, so I don't say something. And
Yes.
I go
Yes.
afterwards, I did it. I did it, but it's a lot of hard work to do that. So that's the third stage, conscious competency. But then we go to a fourth stage, and it's the best part because it's not any work. It's then shifting it so much so it becomes part of who you are and how you
Yes.
show up in the world, and you don't even have to think about it. It just happens
Oh
because
my gosh, that is so great, Beth. That is so, like, I
yeah,
think we all needed to hear that. That's just amazing because I can think of like so many examples of this in my life,
yeah,
where I'm working towards this.
yeah,
I call it bettering myself and react, but it's that, like you say, it's that whole how you're reacting and what you're doing, and certainly relates even to what we're talking about in regards to food. Like, yeah,
yeah.
now
Oh,
it's
for sure,
effortless just
everything.
to avoid that,
Yeah,
that trigger for me, and
yeah,
this is
yeah,
really hard for people who have, food sensitivities and things like that. Um,
yeah.
like I know people who've struggled for like 10 years trying to give up, alcohol or gluten or something like that. So this is
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it kind of frames it for them.
Yeah, I think to see that it's a process, that it's not a setback when you have that, it's that, oh, that's part of it. This is the hardest part of the process. And when you're in the midst of it, it can feel really awful. It can really feel
Yeah.
like I'm why am I so terrible? Why
Yeah.
can't I do this? And if you can recognize in that moment, oh, I'm not so terrible. This is part of the process, and
Yeah,
at
that's
least
brilliant.
I'm acknowledging it, that even if it's after the fact, I've acknowledged it. Or as I'm going, if it's food related, as I'm going to take a cookie. So I'm really trying to not have any in between meal snacks. That's if we're going to talk about nutrition. And try, if I'm going to have a snack, I want it to be a complete snack. So I'm going to have a carbohydrate, a protein, and a fat. And so not, whereas before I might just grab a cookie. And
Yeah,
that's just a little cookie. It's not, but it has a chain reaction in your body every time you
right.
just have that one thing. And so as I'm grabbing it, and I haven't done this for a long time, but just when I was doing, I would grab it going, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm doing it. And
Yeah.
in that
Yes.
moment, I go, I still know it's part of the process. And
Yes.
next time, and there have been times when I went to grab it and go, no, I'm not going to this time. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
hard.
It
but
is
but
so
it feels
hard.
like, yay, okay, that hard struggle is where you're making the progress, I think.
Yes, and you're actually affecting your prefrontal cortex every time you do that. In fact, I think it's Kelly McGonigal. I think it's her work that she says, like, you should actually put, because she wrote a whole book on temptation, and not, temptation is not the right word, but it starts with a C and I can't think of it, but yeah, just like how we make our decisions about what to do. And she said, like,
Mhm.
you should actually put something that, like a bowl of chocolate in your front hallway, but never eat it. Like, always
Ah,
walk by it. And that every
yeah,
time you walk by it, you're going to actually strengthen your
strengthen.
brain.
Yeah,
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 that
yeah.
prefrontal cortex.
Well, I have chocolates in my front hall here, and I used to
Dude.
take them and pop them. I have not had one of those chocolates. They're for my
Yeah.
students.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
So
will
that's
take
great.
one and I'll eat one on the tail end of a meal.
Yeah.
That's when I want to have that,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just isolated on
But
its
and
own.
and I think that first stage, that unaware, is a pretty nice stage too, because you're unaware. You don't know what you don't know.
Oh,
And
right.
so
And
it's not,
it's blissfully unaware, right?
yeah, this way unaware. I know sometimes I think, like, even I think even medically, sometimes I think I wish I didn't know that. If I didn't know that, I'd just be going on living my life the way it
Right.
was.
But you can't
Uh,
not shine a light where the light's been. Like, you've seen it. You can't not see it
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What
So
were you? Oh, you just said something that reminded me of something. Blissfully unaware. Um, what did you say after that? Oh, I don't know.
I
I've
think I
lost it.
stopped. I can't remember.
It was, oh, I know what it was. I know what it was, because it's a good segue jump into, if that's me, if I know at some point in my life or many points in my life, I've been blissfully unaware, that
Yes,
means everybody else has been too. And when someone
yes,
does something or doesn't do something, and I hear someone label them as rude or something, it's like they're not aware they're doing it yet. So
yes,
you have had the light, and you've
yes,
become more aware that that's, or you're aware that that's a habit or a pattern that you don't want to do, but they haven't figured that out yet. So
yes,
we're so quick as a society, and I'm so guilty of it over the years, and really this is one thing that I'm working on, is to not be so judgmental about people, and to
yes,
say that's not where they're at, they can't see it yet,
yeah.
so
And to
it's
not
not for me to try
assume,
to change them.
yeah, and not to assume that people know what you know. And
Yeah.
I've had this conversation before with in my class about how, you know, we think we know what something, but until we've actually experienced it, like you could read something and you go, oh yeah, that makes lots of sense. But until you've actually experienced it, you don't really know. So there's excuse me, so many different levels of knowing and
Mhm.
awareness,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my
And
goodness. Yeah.
on a deep
Yeah.
level. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, while
Totally. You
while
think
we
about what
talk,
you know, you think about what you know now from what you knew in your 20s. My
yeah,
goodness.
yeah,
What a
I
change.
know, I know,
Are you
it's
getting some
huge.
water?
I'm getting some water because I have a little tickle in my throat, so I'm
Get a
just
tour
walking
of your
over here.
house.
Yes. It's a bit of a mess. This is one of my COVID things, is like, because nobody's been visiting at all. I had no reason to really clean, like,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
not saying
Well, we
my
couldn't
husband
see
does
it. We couldn't see anything. It looked nice.
yeah, just all
Yeah.
over. Okay, let me just have a little zip here.
Yeah, but coming back to compassion, I think that's where I really want to. I see people, and I see their ability sometimes to overlook something that seems um, awful, being maybe not overlook, but move past the judgment on something and find compassion. And it's not always the easiest um, vision or lens to view things from a societal perspective, because especially
Mhm.
if you have friends who think like you, and you're the only one saying, but you know what, they didn't know, and it's like, oh, just stop being a Pollyanna, or I'm not even
Yeah.
thinking anything particular, but just that can happen. And it's so easy to get, like you had said about a friend getting cajoled into eating something. You want to fit in. Oh, that's another thing that Brene Brown was talking. Oh no, maybe it was, who was it now? One of
Were
these.
you listening to Martha Beck? Because Martha Beck's,
No,
been talking
it's
about
it,
culture and how our culture affects
no,
affects.
it's Brene Brown, and in her oh, what's the book? Um, It'll come to me. You and I with our menopause brains. Um, the words are not there. Where are you in any given situation? Are you trying to fit in, or do
Yeah.
you feel you belong? And she says, as long as you're trying to fit in, you will never belong. So it's
Yes,
hard
that's so
when
true.
you like, I want to have compassion, and if everyone around me is not having compassion, it's hard for me to speak up and say that. So here I'm denying that part because I want to fit in, instead of
Yeah.
saying it, because it's a harder path sometimes to say,
It's interesting too, because in our line of work, we're maybe and because we're researchers and we are knowledge seekers, we know things, and then you're with a group of people and everybody's saying, uh, I'm trying to think of an example, but just like they're saying, oh no, like you have to. I'll just use again a food analogy because it's easy. Like they say, oh, like dairy's great for you. It does this and it does that and whatever. And you might have information
oh,
that says differently, but it's sometimes really, you have to be. I've talked to people about this, and you don't want to sound like a know-it-all. You don't want to sound like you're
yeah.
superior. You don't want to. So it's really interesting how you know well, you're a vegetarian, so you know that sometimes that the whole meat eating conversation can be, fraught with,
Yeah,
you know, and there's
myths.
myths, and there's a lot of information there, and yeah, it's and we're a cancel culture now, so you have to be really careful what you
Yeah,
say,
yeah. Oh,
and
my, and
and
social media right now is it, because we're not gathering in groups. So that's where you say something and you either get canceled or you get supported. By one group you get canceled, another group you get supported. And it's
yeah,
like people are
exactly,
choosing sides, and nothing is
yeah,
ever that simple. There's never
yeah,
just two sides to things. It's more
yeah.
complex than that.
Yeah, that's another really good podcast, actually. With I mentioned earlier about with Martha Beck, and I think it's Jay
Yeah,
Shetty, talking about. She's written a new book, and it's all about that. When you're always trying to fit into a culture, when you're always trying to be like everybody else, it plays on your own integrity.
yeah,
It plays on your own
yeah,
soul. So yeah, that's another very interesting one as well.
yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, we've covered a lot of ground.
I know, and I'm wondering if we should say goodbye now to the conversation.
Well, I know you and I could
Okay.
just keep talking forever. We sometimes have
Yeah,
a hard time getting off the phone or off of
I know.
FaceTime when we're talking, because
Yeah,
it just goes one thing to the other to the other.
I know.
Yeah,
So
I
Beth,
don't
where do
even know how
people?
long it's been.
Beth is so everyone. Beth is as you've probably seen her on our little conversations before. She's a teacher for teachers. Where do people reach you if they want to take your
Connect.
classes or training or what have you?
Well, I'm not doing any classes for the summer, but I have put out there a really sweet deal, I think, that people can have access to 10 classes. And I've got an all levels class, a gentle class, and a teacher's yoga practice. And they can get 10 of those, of each of like 10 of one set. Or they can
Yeah.
tell me they want to mix and match if they're a teacher and want to see different levels for $50. So that's like $5 a class. And I will unlock the link so that they can have access over the summer to 10
Wow.
classes for $50. And so that kind of makes me feel like I'm supporting whoever wants to keep practicing with
Your
me.
community, yeah.
You know, and every class is different. And yeah, you can find that on my, where do I have that listed? I don't think I have it listed anywhere right now, but I think I
On
might
your
throw it onto
website?
my, I don't think I've even put it on my website because I just started talking to
Yeah.
my people that were coming to my classes. I did send a newsletter out. So if you go
Yeah.
to, I have 2 Instagram pages. One is Yoga for Life with number 4, 1, 2, 3. And my other one is Beth Rutty Yoga. And the Beth Rutty Yoga one is more of the teacher focused little demos and things on there. The Yoga for Life, I do food photography of things that I've made, nature, the things that I love in life that take a different form of yoga
Oh,
than
lovely.
being on the
Okay.
mat. My Facebook pages, my yoga one is Beth Rutty Yoga, so it's really kind of consistent. My website is bethruttyyoga.com. So it's easy to find me, and my email address is beth@bethruttyyoga.com. So if
Awesome.
you're interested and you don't see that 10 classes for $50 anywhere, just email me, and maybe
Yeah.
you can put that in the notes to Suzanne.
Yeah, Beth is
Yeah.
an amazing teacher. So if you can, that is a great deal. So we definitely take advantage of that. You can always see me on my YouTube channel, on my website, SuzanneJ.com. My YouTube is Susanne Jakubowski. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Yoga with Susanne. So you can check us out all there. So let's say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so
Okay.
much for listening.
Thank
And thank you,
you.
Beth, for your time.
Thank
Namaste.
you. Namaste. Have a great day, everyone.
Yes. Okay.